Aloha and welcome to Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of Grassroot Institute, and I welcome you. If you're watching somewhere across the world as this program goes out across the world, then we welcome you. Come to Hawaii and help us build our economy. We'll come to wherever you are and help you build yours. You know, freedom is such a delicate commodity. Anyone across the world knows that. But do you realize that freedom can only be as free as our arts are, really? And when I think back to the American flag, Betsy Ross, and how much being able to symbolize what this union stood for meant to the founders of our country and to generations since. Are we using the arts in such a way to preserve democracy today? I'm going to have an interesting conversation today with a man who knows the arts intimately because he's the director emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival, which has gained international renown. Film is at the heart of communicating what arts has to communicate in the world today, and we're going to chat in a wide-ranging conversation both about film and the HIFF, and I'd like you to welcome to our program today Chuck Boller. Chuck, welcome.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on board. You and I have had an enjoyable time getting to know each other a bit, and I've enjoyed the Hawaii International Film Festival for about 25 years. What a remarkable institution you've been behind.
Yes, thank you. It's actually 34 years old this year. I've been here 25 years. I've lived in Hawaii longer than I've lived anywhere else. But yeah, 34 years old.
I realize, I remember when it first came out, it was just a film showing.
Yes.
And there were some interesting films, but now it's become a very significant part of our arts landscape. Why don't you tell our folks what the HIFF is all about?
It really has. Well, first of all, you and I remember the days it was free.
Yes.
Which was fabulous because everybody could come to the films, and a little bit like the Cannes Film Festival. You don't like a film, you walk out in the middle and you go to another film.
That's right.
But because of distribution and things like that, there's so many costs involved, we had to start charging. But film festivals have become, every couple of years I read about the death of film festivals. Who needs them? Film festivals have saved short films. They've increased the popularity of documentary films, which are now probably even more popular at the Hawaii International Film Festival than feature films are. People like documentaries and true stories, whether they're really true or not.
And don't film festivals bring to the public films that may never get out and get distributed through the more commercial chains?
Absolutely. You know, digital filmmaking has revolutionized the film industry in general, and now there's so many outlets for filmmakers. It used to be you had to work your way through the industry, work your way up. Now film people are hired right off YouTube. Some 17-year-old kid from Chile was just hired.
How about that? So what's the
Hollywood, for example.
What's the distinctive of the HIFF?
Well, when you're saying with film festivals, now because of digital, there's so many other outlets. There are airline sales, there's Netflix, there's video on demand, there are all kinds, anything online. YouTube has 100 channels. Who needs theaters anymore? So often the only screening of a film is at a film festival.
That's right.
The only theatrical release at a film festival.
Or from city to city at different film festivals.
Exactly. That's the only place you can see them. Especially in a place like Hawaii, we're very aware of the fact that most of these films will never ever come here. That's one reason people say, why don't you show Hollywood films? Why should we? But they're going to show here anyway. You know, sometimes we'll have Silver Linings Playbook.
Sure.
We had the U.S. premiere of that. We also had the U.S. premiere of August Osage County, believe it or not. Because why wouldn't we? They're Meryl Streep, they're extraordinary films, and we'll put a couple Hollywood movies in there because they're very exciting. Otherwise, we go for more of the American independent films and international cinema as well. And our heart and soul has always been in Asia and the Pacific, because when we were started 34 years ago at the East-West Center, that was their mission statement.
That's right.
East and West. We've always been a true international festival, but our heart and soul has always been Asia and the Pacific. Also, the huge majority of people here are connected. We live in the Pacific, but we're also connected to Asia and the Pacific by blood, by interest, by culture, etc. So it's natural we've got international films that would follow that path.
Asia Pacific and we in Hawaii are so diverse, and that's reflected in the menu of films that you have at any given time. I'm always just impressed with just the breadth of cultures that are covered in the film festival.
Well, we really try that. That's the main reason I moved to Hawaii 25 years ago was the ethnic mix here. It's the only true melting pot I've ever witnessed in my life. You know, I came here from Washington, D.C., where I was an entertainment lawyer and lobbyist, and when I said, Washington, D.C. is a melting pot, no, it wasn't. There was a black neighborhood, Italian neighborhood. Everybody
Sure.
here gets together. Everybody here gets along. It's the way the world should be, as we know.
So when someone comes to the Hawaii International Film Festival, what do they get that they might not get at some of the other name brand film festivals across the world?
One of the things is that unique Hawaii, the unique aspect of living in Hawaii. Roger Ebert, the fabulous
Yes,
film
that's
critic
right.
and dear friend of HIF's.
Of the old
loved it.
Siskel and Ebert
Of the old
team.
Siskel and Ebert team. And he passed away last year. A tremendous loss, and he was an incredibly good man. Big supporter of the Hawaii International Film Festival. He helped legitimize us. He helped us know what we were doing was right.
That's right.
He came here because he couldn't see Asian cinema anyplace else but here.
All right.
But here in Hawaii. So he was a big fan of our film festival, so we always appreciated that. But he would say, for example, it was amazing the talk and the discussion in the lines about the films people have seen. I've been at wonderful film festivals around the world, silence in the waiting line. People don't say, what other good films have you seen? Or, here, want some mac salad? Or whatever they say while they're waiting in line. That
That's
alone
right.
is a different kind of energy that HIF has that other festivals don't have.
You know, it's almost like when I go to a HIF film, it's almost like a pilgrimage to a temple.
I love that.
There's something religious about it. People have a certain veneration, a respect for what's going on. Whereas the folks going to the Hollywood produced films, the blockbusters and so forth, they're running for their popcorn.
Boy, are they.
They're with their boyfriends and girlfriends, and it's just
They're texting.
There you go.
During
There
the
you go.
movie.
But there's something very respectful about those lines that form in advance for HIF films.
That is so nice to hear. We'll have we use Regal Dole Cannery
Yes.
Cinema. And we're also spreading out. We could talk a little bit more to some other locations in town. But Regal Dole Cannery, and one of their officials will come every couple of years, and he goes, I can't believe the number of people waiting patiently in line,
Sure.
in organized lines outside the theater, and they're not pushing, and they're not. He was amazed at that.
Sure.
Because it doesn't happen most places in the world,
Give us
It happens at
give us a very quick fact sheet, number of films that are showing, the number of days it runs, the dates it usually plays. That
So we have two main film events a year, and again, that's changing, but up until this point, we've had two main film events. We've 34 years we presented in
All right.
the fall our big film festival, the Hawaii International Film Festival.
Every fall.
Presented by Halekulani.
What
It's our
month is that
presenting
usually?
sponsor. It's changed all over the
Okay.
place. This year it's going to be October 30th,
2014.
2014 to November 9th. It's been mid-October for the last several years. That's a significant change
All
because
right.
of the tourism, the difficulty of us getting airline tickets and hotel rooms in October anymore. We had moved
There you
away.
go.
We were in December. Then November kept moving because of holiday releases.
Yes.
We couldn't get the theaters because of holiday releases. So we're going back to the first week in November, which is going to be very exciting for us, I think. But we used to have about 250 films. One year we got up to 300, too many. There's only so much screen time and only so much prime time screen time
Right.
there. So we run for 10 days, but if you break it down, each theater, each of our 6 screens at Regal Dole Cannery Cinema, you could have 2 primetime screenings because Honolulu is an early to bed town.
Sure.
Other cities, you could start a film at 10 or 11.
Right.
It's too late here.
That's right.
On a weeknight, right? So you really have 2. So that's 12 a night we have because there's 6
12 a
theaters.
night.
Of course, everybody wants those prime spots, don't they? So how early in the day can you start? You start 10 a.m. During the week, nobody's going to come to the
That's
cinema
right.
because who can? Right? So we start about 3 o'clock.
All
during
right, in the
week,
afternoon.
Sometimes 10 or noon on the weekends as well. We have a HIF app. If you go
Yes.
on, you can download on your Android phone or your iPhone as well. Get all this information.
Many of my friends use HIF
Yes.
apps, which is remarkable because in the early days, I have to confess, staying abreast of the films that you wanted to do is like playing bingo and so forth. It was a very difficult task with paper. Plus the changes that might occur at the last minute.
One of the things that gave me gray hair were the changes of things at the film festival. I initially said I'd shave my beard, it turned gray, but it
Right, you
was a
show
long
up thinking
time ago.
you're watching one film, and you find, wait a minute, I didn't know this was rated R.
Well, one of my favorite stories, we were waiting for a film to come in from Mexico. The wrong film came in.
There you
and
go.
It was a hardcore porn film. I
you
actually
go.
said, let's show that. And my man said, well, it's missing one reel. We probably would have shown that hardcore porn very late at night. But things happen. It's an international festival. Last year we had films from 48 countries. right? So this year we are going to cut down probably about 180 to 200 films. That's more than anybody can see. I think the record's about 40 films any one person's ever seen at the film festival. So you can only see
40
so many.
films. That's
We're trying to
something.
cut them down. We find good friends of mine won't come to the festival. I say, where were you? They say, the catalog is so big. There's so many films I don't know where to begin. Most people in the world go to one film a week at the most. So come to one film.
That's right.
Try it out. You start speaking to people in line. They tell you other films you don't want to miss and things. That's one of the best sources of reference because there are very few film critics anymore. Everybody Twitters and Facebooks and blogs their favorites. And we depend a lot on that for people to tell their friends what films are better. So often the second screening or third screening, because we try to repeat every film.
Okay, so you get a chance to see it if you miss it the first screening.
Yep, because there's a buzz out there in the community about it, and often the second screening is even more full than the first screening.
Now, is it true, in my perception, that the HIFF has moved from the art house kind of approach, which would be for aficionados and diehards and the artistic types, to something very much mainstream that a lot of people who are just in business or ordinary course of life can take part in and include in their entertainment life?
Well, we always say HIF's for everyone.
Yes.
You know, you do definitely get the cerebral cinema people, as I call it.
Right.
Because we'll show a winning film from Cannes, and people come over to me and say, "What was that about?" And I think, I'm not certain myself, but it won at Cannes. There was one from Thailand a couple years ago. Uncle Boomy confronts his ghost in a very complicated, brilliant film. We go from that to not an Adam Sandler film, not that we wouldn't show
there you go.
but very lightweight. So it's really something for everybody. So we still get the hardcore aficionados. One of my favorite things to see is I'll be standing in the lobby of the theater complex, and I try to be there a lot and be accessible to people, as does Robert Lambeth, the new executive director of the festival, and our entire staff, to get feedback and talk to people, etc. And somebody come over to you and say, worst film festival I've ever come to. I haven't liked any film. Right behind them, somebody has their arms out. It's better every year. That film was brilliant. And I said, well, this man hated it. You two need to talk about why you're so
That's right.
But that's what makes film exciting, isn't it?
There's such a diversity in the turnout, you know, and I've been there in the lobby or in the after a film and so forth. And on one hand, you see a couple talking as if one of them is Woody Allen discussing philosophy, and the next to them, someone who looks like they just saw a blockbuster cartoon or something like that. And that's what I really commend you on, is you've reached out and you've made film accessible to everybody. But still, I have the sense that there's just not enough knowledge about HIF, what it is, and that it is accessible.
Very true. Thank you for that lead-in, because our app is amazing. So is our website, hif.org, right? And you can go on there and you can put in the genre of films you're interested in. Films about women, up comes a whole list of films. I used to joke around, you put a furry dog in a photo, that film will sell out. We actually do flyers with films about animals because there are people who are attracted to those. They're gay films, they're any kind of film you can imagine you could put in there. Horror films, there's nothing like horror films from Thailand, for example.
Well, Chuck,
you can find it all on our website.
That's great information, and we're going to come back with Chuck Boller, the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival. Truly a great institution here in the state of Hawaii. It's one of the ways in which we've become distinctive and are on the map with a world-class function. When we come back, I want to ask Chuck questions about what role having this film festival plays in keeping us a free and democratic place. I look forward to hearing what he has to say. This is Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute on Ehana Kako on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network with Chuck Boller of the Hawaii International Film Festival. Don't go away.
Castle and Cook, Hawaii. Investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state. Collateral Analytics, empowering the real estate industry to make better informed property investment decisions. The Foreign Trade Zone, bringing the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone programs to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. Galen Ho, a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company. Hawaiian Electric Company, and its affiliates Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island. The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, incorporating diverse perspectives to design a flexible and forward-looking energy strategy. Hawaii Energy, the state's energy and efficiency program created to help Hawaii's residents and businesses adopt a clean energy lifestyle. Hawaii Gas, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future. Hawaii Pacific Health, bringing technology and teamwork together to transform healthcare in Hawaii. The High Tech Development Corporation, attached to DBED, is the state's leading technology agency. The Scheidler Family Foundation, supporting educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Aloha and welcome back to Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina, president of Grassroots Institute. Ehana Kako is patterned after a venerated saying here in Hawaii, e pule kako, which means let us pray. But Ehana Kako at Grassroots Institute is let us work. Let's work together. Let's work together to build a better government, better society, better economy. And that's why I've invited Chuck Boller here today, because building a better government, a better society, a better economy depends upon the freedom that we have as people. The arts play an absolutely essential role in the preservation of freedom. And film, in a particular way, does, largely because a lot of people don't read books now. But film has a very powerful way of influencing us here in this country and across the world. I want to jump back into our conversation with Chuck Boller, the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival. Chuck, in the history of HIFF, there must have been times when you were considered to be perhaps not totally politically correct, when you came up against the powers that be, or the dominant stereotypes and so forth, and had to plug away for the sake of getting a viewpoint out, or multiple viewpoints out. And so have you conceived of HIFF as having a role in keeping alive freedom in our state?
Well, you know, we try to present all kinds of viewpoints. I remember a couple of years ago we showed a film that we got at the last minute. We got the premiere of it, and people read that as a pro-Obama film. It depends if you like Obama or not. If you did, if you didn't like him, you thought it was pro-Obama. If you liked him, you thought it wasn't strong enough.
So you were corporate sellouts for a political message, pro-Obama, in all states, of all states in Hawaii.
We wanted the film, and we thought we want that film, and we'll let people think whatever they want, because everyone interprets films their own way, don't they?
That's right.
I think, what is the message of that film? People come to me and say, boy, that film was slow, and I think it was a living poem, you know. It was slow but beautifully paced, you know, kind of thing. But there's no better window into other cultures, is there, than cinema?
Absolutely.
And people can, because of digital filmmaking especially, people can tell their own stories now. So once you realize the things that are shared by people around the world, the desire, some people put happiness aside, but desire to be happiness, to be secure, to have a family, to have children, you know, have enough food on the table, to have a good lifestyle, whether you're rich or not, you know, those are shared by everybody around the world. And once you see those kind of things and see films from other countries telling the stories about people, the way they live there and the challenges and such, you realize we're all in the same boat together.
That's very
really,
interesting.
You know? You also realize the freedoms we have in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
In the U.S., they don't have in other countries, because you see in the films they don't have those.
So film brings in this diversity. It lets us see things we would not see in other lands amongst other people,
yes, it does.
and ultimately lets us see ourselves through that. And so I would think that that's a contribution to the preservation of freedom, because freedom is challenged when we tend to think we're the only ones, we're the only way, and we tend not to see the rights of other people as a result.
So true. Or not to care about the rest of the world. You know, all great empires have been like that. From ancient Rome on, they think, well, we're the ones running the world, and I say that with love for the U.S., but we're the ones running the world, and everybody should speak English here, and everybody should, you know, march to our beat, etc. That's not always 100%
Sure.
true.
On the converse of what your film festival attempts to achieve in terms of bringing diverse points of view, what would you say the problem would be if all we did was consume the Hollywood output in terms of messages that are there, in terms of the commercialization and so forth?
Well, you know, I love Hollywood.
Well, they're fun films, of course.
They are, but often they're not realistic. There's always a happy ending, which is very nice.
That's not very Shakespearean, is it?
It's not at all, is it? You know, but you'll see films around the rest of the world, especially, they're very realistic, because I wish life were full of happy endings. I've been blessed. I have a great life, you know, but it's not always positive for people, and that's not always reflected in American films, and nothing against like Hangover 6 or Pirates of the Caribbean 5 or something, but Hollywood will find a winning formula.
Well, what
and they
about
go with
Rocky
that.
23?
Rocky 23, you know, Rocky's great-granddaughter will be the boxer, you know, so, but Hollywood finds a winning formula, and it is about money, and again, good for Hollywood, you know, it still is the leading film
Sure.
area of the entire world, and an influence of the entire world, for the better or for the worse, because many film makers around the world have been influenced by Hollywood, and I would never like to see the film like Bollywood be completely Hollywoodized. So far it isn't, thank God.
There we go.
But many other cultures have, because I like Korean cinema very much.
Yes.
And many people think it reflects Hawaii or Hollywood a lot because of the violence. Now, Asia has a lot of violence in its history. Every culture does, with war, etc. So
Sure.
whether that's from Hollywood or not, who knows? But that kind of influence from Hollywood, I would like to see.
Hollywood gives us a certain cultural frame of reference.
Yes.
And that's the frame of reference that sells to the perceived market that
Yes.
Hollywood sees. And rather than say one form of film is better than another, each plays a very important role. The film festival, the independent films, help us to see a much broader diversity and
Absolutely.
help us to understand that there are different ways of thinking. Now, are there any films in particular that have contributed, films you may have brought with the Hawaii International Film Festival, that have contributed to building freedom, that have helped us to break out of stereotypes and understand other people and respect others' rights better? Can you think of one or two that have made a difference? I know there have been so many.
That's the tough one.
Yeah,
there have been so many.
To select?
Yeah, because you'll see, for example, a big fan of Iranian cinema.
Yes.
And it's interesting because we all have our theories of the way that women are treated in Iran. Well, many of the top filmmakers
Sure.
in Iran are women, and they tell the stories on the film you would never see otherwise. And you realize how challenging it is to live in a society like that. If you want to hold certain beliefs and have certain values and exercise those kind of freedoms, that's very well depicted in film. I think it definitely leads one, or should, to appreciate life in the United States and the freedoms that we have, the choices we can make, the opportunities available to women.
Sure, certainly.
It's not enough, but there are a lot more than there were.
And certainly, especially since 9/11, we've had many political overlays
Yes.
interpreting to us what Islam is all about,
Yes.
what the Arab world is all about, what the Muslim faith is all about, and so
Yes.
forth. And some of the films, the raw films that come straight out of that region, help us to understand at least better that there are husbands and wives,
Yes.
children and parents,
Yes.
people in everyday relationships with the everyday drama that somehow personalize and humanize other people to us in a way that we don't get from the news media.
Absolutely. There's so many films. I've seen several along the same theme. Look at like Palestinian and Israeli
Right.
children who go to camp together, end up being dear friends, and they go back to their separate lives. We had a film called Paradise Now. There's a new film out, and I can't think what the name of it is from the director, and I can't think of his name either, but Paradise Now, about based on a true story, 2 Harvard graduates from Palestine who went home and couldn't get jobs.
Yes.
So they became suicide bombers. And you think, why would 2 Harvard-educated people? One of them, his family had been disgraced. This would have saved his family, plus got $1 million from the government if he blew himself up. The other fellow just was a very strong religious person, etc. It ends, you don't know if either of them blew themselves up or not. They're on the bus and they've got on the suicide vest, but you don't know if they set it off or not. But you can understand why somebody would go into that. Oh, I know the fellow who was very militant also, the family would get $1 million. The
Sure.
family was desperately poor. So you see a different side of whether there's ever justification for something like that. No.
Sure.
But you see why some people would do that.
Well, here's part of the problem that I think the film festival and many film festivals have faced. When in a politically sensitive climate, films are introduced that can be considered leftist or rightist
Yes.
somewhere along the political spectrum. It's easy to criticize, but here's the sense that I get, and that is when I've been surprised by right-wing films I've seen
Yes.
that could have been called right-wing,
Yes.
or left-wing films, which I think I see more of, by the way. Wading through that, I get the feeling, though, that the real dominant principle at the film festival is just to show how human beings are.
Yes.
And that seems to come across.
Absolutely. That, and I think basically entertainment of all sizes and variety. We try not to take particular views, or if there's something that is such a good film we want it, and it's really skewed one way, we do try to balance that, because even if a documentary, if it's true, quote unquote, it's always really the director's version of events when it comes down to it, no matter how unbiased one tries to be. It's the same with any film that's made, isn't it? Whether they intentionally or not have a point of view, they do, don't they? They end up advocating a certain lifestyle or not advocating that, for example. Some glorify drug use, some don't. It's just the opposite.
How realistic do you think, on balance, are the portrayals of life that come from these independent films from various regions when we watch them?
I think incredibly authentic. They really are. And they don't just have to be a documentary, Part of it is, I think filmmaking around the world now is better financed. A lot of independent financiers get into it. There are other ways of doing it. Also, with digital now, it's so much easier and cheaper to make a film, which is also wonderful. It's opened it up to almost everyone, and people like throughout the Pacific, where the climate has always been a challenge to film preservation. With digital, you don't have those issues anymore, and it's so inexpensive. Everyone can afford to tell their own stories rather than have someone like Hollywood come in and tell the story of Hawaii. Filmmakers here can tell that themselves now, for example. So I think they're very authentic.
Now, when I think of some situations across the world about which we don't have major Hollywood films, the independent film festivals are able to bring them to bear, whether we're talking about human sex trafficking, whether we're talking about boys being conscripted into military as little boys and fighting for the country, and on and on. These are now becoming commonplace understandings here in our country, which is a form of advocacy against them. Do you think that independent films have played a significant role in bringing them into the consciousness?
Definitely, I think they have, because it's very, not to dump on Hollywood, but again, the commercial filmmakers want to make a profit.
Right, you don't want to go out on a Friday night to watch a film like that in a major cinema.
Absolutely, let's go watch people be abused.
That's right.
There's an amazing documentary called The Act of Killing about the Khmer Rouge slaughtering people, and the actual men who are responsible for those atrocities recreate them on film. It's astonishing to watch something like that they would actually do that, but the lesson that comes through there is overwhelming. It's impossible not to be moved by that film. Hollywood wouldn't make a film like that. Now, because of the intricacy of financing a film, there are wonderful people like Megan Ellison, who's a daughter of Larry Ellison, who Lanai. She has funded some of the major films in Hollywood that never would have been funded. She funded American Hustle. She funded Her. She funded, what's it called? Zero Dark 30. Those films probably wouldn't have been made if it weren't for her. Now, not that American Hustle had to be made, although I loved living during that era. I had a great time there myself. But some of the other films that would not seen as big crowd pleasers, the big money makers, are very difficult to make in a commercial film environment.
Right.
If it's not for the independent filmmakers, they're not going to be made, or for people like Megan Ellison that will fund a production like that.
That's right.
Because most investors want to be guaranteed a very healthy return on their money, and they'll only go for a very safe film.
And if someone wants the kind of fare that Zero Dark 30 may represent, or American Hustle and so forth, you'll actually find much more of it, and at a very high quality in the film festivals.
Yes, and again, it put documentary films on the map, and people realize, gosh, these aren't some boring kind of thing where you lock a camera down at a committee meeting. These are just the opposite, In fact, some lines are being blurred now because documentary film is so popular. The Sunday New York Times had a big article saying that many scenes are recreated in documentaries, etc. So is that a documentary, quote unquote, because you've got recreated scenes in there that weren't originally shot when the incident actually happened? Who knows?
Well, that goes.
Why restrict yourself?
Goes back to that old question: Ars gratia ars. Is it art that creates life, or is it life that creates art? And what happens when you're trying to do a documentary on it, and so forth?
Yeah, it's both, isn't it?
Yeah, both, of course. And what do you think has happened, or do you know of any instances where freedom has been enhanced in foreign countries as a result of a story getting out through independent films?
I would imagine.
Absolutely.
The one about
the crackdown.
Yeah, the crackdown. The one about Muhammad that was that very bizarre
absolutely.
film
That's right.
And even the actors and actresses didn't realize the film they were in. They thought it was something else. That created this huge backlash and riots and things like this. But I'm trying to think of a film that there must be several that if it had a positive influence.
If you have one in mind, to bring it up when we come back after a really quick break, I'm talking in a very fascinating conversation with Chuck Boller, the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival. The arts, they play an important role in freedom, and film obviously is premier amongst many of the arts today. This is Keli'i Akina on E Hana Kākou at the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We'll be right back after this short break.
Aloha, I'm Jay Fidel. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, broadcasting live from the Pioneer Plaza in downtown Honolulu. We raise public awareness about tech, energy, and globalism in Hawaii. Technology is critical to our state. A vibrant tech sector will give us new prospects in the global marketplace and will offer great careers and make our economy more resilient. Streaming live on Ustream and Spreaker, ThinkTech allows its hosts and guests invaluable opportunities to report important events and discuss important questions, and to be heard here in Hawaii and around the world. You can find links to our live streams on thinktechhawaii.com or on our mobile website, m.thinktechhawaii.com. And you can see our archive on YouTube. It's all just a click away. We want to do whatever we can to keep Hawaii relevant, connected, and thriving in the complexity of the 21st century. We hope you will help us in those efforts. Tune in today. This is ThinkTech. I'm Jay Fidel. Mahalo.
Aloha and welcome back to E Hana Kākou. My guest today, Chuck Boller, is the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival. He's done a phenomenal job of standing with a wonderful group of people to make available to Hawaii a world-class film festival, known, of course, across the world, but something that has also shaped our own exposure to the arts, from Hawaii and across the world. And we're going to just dive right back into our conversation now. Chuck, once in a while a film comes out that creates controversy in the homeland.
Yes.
About which it features. One film spoke about the practice of killing dolphins in Japan.
Yes.
That was The Cove.
The Cove.
And film festivals gave it an impetus so that it got viewed by Americans in a way it would never have been had it gone the route of the Hollywood production and so forth. You showed that at one of the Hawaii International Film Festivals.
We did incredibly, tremendous response to it because it's very difficult to watch. A slaughter of dolphins, we're all thinking it's flipper or whatever, and dolphins are extremely intelligent animals, and they're not slaughtered for their meat, they're slaughtered more because they're a nuisance. That has gone on to have tremendous international repercussions, particularly in Japan, and part of it is because the filmmaker, very smart, very aggressive filmmakers, and so they use that film to go forward and try and make a difference. We had a film last year called Lion Arc about trying to save lions from circuses that are incredibly abused. In another film that's difficult to watch, many of them have never been outside a cage. They're born in a cage and they die in a cage 25 miserable years later. So what happened to those animals if you can free them from zoos? Often they're just killed. Well, this Lion's Arc that we had the U.S. premiere of, extremely well done. It's actually gone on to make a big difference the way the zoos treat their animals, circuses, etc. Because circuses are always a little controversial with the live animals and so.
Now, these aren't issues that come to the fore if all we're doing is watching network television and Hollywood movies. And also, even as you're speaking, I'm sitting here thinking, here on ThinkTech Hawaii, do we have any sponsors of fish products that might pull their sponsorship because you're talking about The Cove,
exactly.
which, and I mentioned this just, in a sense, tongue-in-cheek, only because there's that tension, and in a sense, how do you deal with that? Is it you just accept the fact that you won't be funded by certain sources? You realize you have a mission. How do you deal with the fact that some of the issues you raise may not be politically correct or commercially in your best interest if you're seeking sponsors?
Well, not to be so bold, but we've never, to my knowledge, had an incident where that's happened, where a sponsor's complained. They might
well,
say
that's
sometimes,
because you have a selective group of sponsors in the first place.
but let's say one of the banks sponsors
All right.
a section of films. We don't
Okay.
We pick the films.
All
we
right.
don't say, what do you think of these? We might, as a polite thing, we just say, okay, here are the films we picked from India, or here are the films
Yes.
from China, whatever. They're not always wild about all of the films. They'll often suggest films to us, which we welcome very, very much. But we've never had an incident where they really will get upset. We've been very, very fortunate by that. Although I think, to understand the nature of film, so much is up to individual interpretation of a film, isn't it? Again, people will discuss things and I'll think, gosh, it's a completely different message than I got from that film. Or people will think the focus is one thing when I think it's something else. Or I'll see a film I like very much, I'll read a review and I thought, oh, I didn't get that from that film at all. So it's an individual journey when you're watching a film, isn't it? Or different television shows. I try to watch, I forced myself once to watch The Kardashians just to see what it was like, and I couldn't believe that people would waste their time watching it. But obviously people are getting something out of that show that I didn't get.
Yes, they are.
But the same with, it shows my taste in television.
There you go.
But the same with film, so it's interesting because we have very good film
Well,
programmers.
maybe you should feature the Housewives of Cannes.
Maybe we should have the Housewives of Hawaii. They would all get along and swap food. It'd actually be a wonderful show.
That would be
Somebody
wonderful.
told me they were proposing that.
Well, how about that? You have done so much. HIFF has done so much, and there's so many people who've been involved. I haven't known all of them, but I'm very grateful for my association with Thomas Jackson, a professor at the university who was one of the diehards at the beginning.
Great job.
All of you have advocated for film in Hawaii, so that film now has a revered place here. How would you compare the advocacy for film in terms of where it is and where it's going with some of the other arts, whether we're talking about the musical arts, having an orchestra, the museums, theater, and so forth? How far along has film come with respect to its cognate arts that are growing in Hawaii as well?
I think it really has grown here, and part of it is led by the wonderful filmmakers who live in Hawaii or are connected with Hawaii.
So we're producing film here.
Yes,
we have something to show.
Excellent film. In fact, we closed last year's October festival, the big festival, with the world premiere of The Haumana, about a halau. Excellent film. We're actually closing the Spring Film Festival, which is April 4th to 10th. I forgot to mention the dates, with Kumuhina, an incredible story, again, world premiere, another Hawaii film. And we're going to try to take the Haumana to Shanghai with us, to the Shanghai International Film Festival. It'll be the first time a Hawaii feature film has played in China. We have a student exchange program with the Academy for Creative Media, so I'm very proud to say this is the 8th year we'll be taking Hawaii student films to Shanghai and showing them there, and then we bring Chinese students in here during October and do the same thing. But
so you're not merely displaying the finest films from across the world. We are producing films in Hawaii, and the film festival helps give it a venue here, a premier venue, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So that enhances the industry.
Yes, we reach over 12,000 students here in Hawaii with our educational programs, and we have many of them in these modern economic times. Often to rent or to go to the film can be very expensive for a family, especially. So you can go on Netflix or something else and get a film much less expensive. So many students have never been in a theater. So we bus film students in. We show films, usually one from Hawaii, and then one that has some kind of lesson. We had one about Kalapapa several years ago, done by an Australian, for example.
That's right.
Trying to show life lessons to the students.
That's incredible.
In careers in film. We started something called the Creative Lab, loosely based on a Sundance Institute and South by Southwest Film Festival that's known for doing many things related to film, but music, high-tech development, all film related, but just tangentially. Film is still the driving force.
That's wonderful.
We're trying to do more of that. So, for example, part of this Creative Lab, we had a screenwriting accelerator, is it called now, because we've been very honored to be chosen by DBAT and other organizations to try to create cultural aspects and other aspects that can be exported from Hawaii and can create careers here as well. So we had script writers submit scripts to us. They were in a 5-day intensive training. We picked 3 script finalists. They're now studying in Los Angeles for a year with CBS Writers Lab.
Well, I want to pick up with you when we come back from this break on the role that the Hawaii International Film Festival is playing in actually communicating who Hawaii is to across the world in terms of building our own tourist industry. We'll be right back after this brief message. I'm Keli'i Akina on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. My guest today is Chuck Boller with the Hawaii International Film Festival. We'll be right back.
Hi, Dale. That's Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. And every Wednesday we have Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy. We've been doing it for some time now, and we have some fantastic guests on there, unbelievable guests who give us insight into what is going on in a very complex, sometimes very confusing, sometimes very disappointing area of progress in the state. So we love doing this. We love meeting them. We love talking to them. We love having their ideas out on the table. So maybe, just maybe, we can all make some sense of what's going on. Sharon, what do you think?
I think that's absolutely correct. We enjoy ourselves meeting with all these people and hearing about the energy and the state of clean energy, and hopefully we advance clean energy for the state. So it's terrific. Join us.
Okay, it's every Wednesday. Okay, Wednesday is Energy Day. Every Wednesday, 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, the State of Clean Energy, here on ThinkTech Hawaii. We'll see you there.
Aloha and welcome back to E Hana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute, where we believe in promoting individual liberty, free markets, and limited accountable government. Individual liberty is so important that I asked Chuck Boller to join us today, the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival, so we could talk about the relationship between freedom and film. Now we dive right back in. Chuck, we were talking a little bit before about the important role that the film festival has played in communicating Hawaii to the rest of the world. And I remember when I used to talk to visitors, or when I would go elsewhere, people's images of Hawaii were Blue Hawaii by Elvis, James Michener, and Hawaii 5-0. And each of them are fine works in and of themselves, but you can understand how something might be missing from the mix. And now you have produced wonderful films that show the indigenous culture here, produced by indigenous producers, not only premiering them at the HIFF, but putting them into the network of film festivals across the world. Has this begun to shape the way the world sees Hawaii and produce a more authentic image of who we are?
And hopefully it has, because when I moved here 25 years ago, people said, "What are you doing? You're going there just for the beaches, etc." I came for the people, of the culture, the food, but the beauty and everything else as well. But people don't know the real Hawaii, I think, and the beauty and such are enough to draw people here. But we all know it's so much more than living in Hawaii, and there's unique, wonderful stories that have not been told about Hawaii, especially by people who live here and have lived those stories themselves. So instead of just being Hollywood's backlot, where Hollywood and others would come in and tell local stories and local films, now local filmmakers can do that, you know.
Well, and what are some of those films that have been launched from the HIFF that are about Hawaii, its people, its native people, that have really been landmark in helping to convey who we are?
Actually, one is Princess Kaiolani, which was controversial because it was called Barbarian Princess,
That's right.
which unfortunately was the way she was referred to originally, the old days.
People don't get irony.
People don't. They read that as misrespect, and it didn't mean that. We got major pressure. I got major pressure from people everyone here in town knows I won't identify,
and it was
not show that film.
And it was a very simple misreading, and that goes back to how well people learned their English in grammar school, which was this: you were not being disrespectful. You were taking what she had been called, and the film itself showed that she was anything but a barbarian.
Showing how absurd
maybe you should have called it Anything But a Barbarian Princess.
Yes, probably. Because it then went back to the title Princess Kaiolani. But I have a good friend in Europe who called me and said he'd seen the film. He said, I never realized it's a side of Hawaii people don't know about. Americans aren't educated well enough about the fact there was a kingdom of Hawaii here that was very successful, thank you very much, without anybody else's help or interference. Things change. History is what it is. Things have changed, but people don't know that at all. So just that film alone, and it was not a major, huge international international hit. You know, a lot of it has to do with distribution, being picked up by the major distributors.
Sure.
People think, okay, who's going to come and see this film? It's all about who's going to come and fill those seats, isn't it? So they always look for something that's good. Interesting, films coming out of Hawaii now, as they are when they come out of every place, like you see from China, there can be hard, cold reality. We had a film a couple of years ago about the dark side of Waikiki with prostitution and drugs, etc. The Hawaii Tourism Authority probably did not like that film.
I thought that was Kalakaua Avenue.
That's where it was shot, was Kalakaua Avenue. We in Hawaii know that exists there, but is that a kind of image of Hawaii you want to export? Not necessarily. China's doing the same thing. Films that come out of there showing a single mother trying to raise her handicapped child, and how difficult that is in a country like China. Well, the Chinese government doesn't like that either, because it doesn't make China look good. But it's a realistic portrait of the place it's from.
You've given a venue here in the premieres of the HIFF for authentic culture to be displayed, and then a network for it to go across the world.
Yes.
And I think that's significant, because the more we know about each other, the more others know about us, the closer we can be to protecting freedoms and the right to be who we are.
So true. Absolutely. You know, we have our films, the Hawaii films, especially in the Hawaii filmmakers section. Most of them are in there. They're also spread throughout the program. So it puts a spotlight on them so people can find them more easily in our hundreds of films.
Well, that's wonderful. You know, we've got a few minutes left here, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit to how the HIFF is supported, who your sponsors are, perhaps, how you generate your revenues. Is it paid for by the actual ticket sales, or is that only a portion of the ultimate cost?
That's a portion of it, because with film, the ticket prices, we try to reflect what they are at the box office.
Sure.
Here, so it's $12, so that's what we charge. If you become a member, which are basically buying ticket packages, although now we offer both of those, your tickets end up costing $8, really. You can get a certain number for free, then you buy them, because we want people to come and to experience the festival. So we try to create something for everyone, but if people haven't tried it before, people should check us out and see what we're all about, honestly, because it's very easy to come. Again, if you want to go to one film, just go to one, but you can go to more. So we are starting for the rest of the year to spread into other areas. The Hawaii Theater has extraordinary state-of-the-art new projection system, really the best in the islands. It's unbelievable. They're starting Cinema Hawaii series, and we're helping launch that in April.
Wonderful.
Every Monday in April, there'll be a HIF film at the Hawaii Theater. Doris Duke Theater at the Museum of Art has a wonderful film program already. We're cooperating with them. They have a Filipino film festival directly opposite our spring festival, April 4th to 10th. So we're working together to cross-promote each other. So we're doing a lot. We're going to be working with Leeward Community College on a special event they have out there. I was just at Windward Community College this weekend. They would love us to show films there. So we're trying to spread out a little bit more, take films to the people as well. Like we used to be all over town in the old days. It's very difficult to coordinate a lot of venues, but we're willing to try it again if that's what people want. But trying to just get the most people involved that we can do. You know.
Going to a film is a cultural experience, and there's something I enjoy about going to an HIFF film, and
Good to hear.
the entire 10 days or so, there are lots of social events,
Yes.
so you could make it a part of an annual experience and so forth.
Yes.
Do you think that we will see the day when watching films digitally, downloading your, not your Netflix, but your art house flicks, so to
Yes.
speak, .com,
Yes.
will take the place of the experience of coming together to a film premiere or something, an HIFF event?
That might happen. I'm hoping it doesn't, of course, you know, and that's been predicted for years, kind of thing. That's one reason I think 3D is so popular and IMAX and such, because the theaters are trying to pull people in with unique experiences
Sure.
you can't get anywhere else, you know. So hopefully that's not going to, that is our main competition, I think, especially the younger people are brought up and watching filmed on a little computer screen, which is not the same, as we know. They don't have the experience of going to cinemas. They're satisfied enough. To me, film isn't art, and there's nothing like the big screen. You asked me about sponsors, and we couldn't do it without sponsors. The majority of our money does come from sponsors. Halekulani, the incredible
Yes.
hotel in Oahu, best in all of Hawaii, is our presenting sponsor. But we have other hotels, Starwood Hotels, for
Yes.
example, different banks, First Hawaiian Bank, etc. So it's corporate, it's grant support, in those orders, and ticket sales are part of it as well.
Well, this has been a fascinating insight into the HIFF, and also a nice chat about the role of film and freedom. So thanks so much,
Thank you.
Chuck.
Thanks so much, my friend. Really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
being with us, and also thank you for your commitment to Hawaii.
Thanks so much.
You've spanned many careers to get yourself, including a career as a lawyer,
Yes.
to get yourself into a position where today you're really benefiting the people of Hawaii by providing this wonderful, wonderful institution,
It's
HIFF.
my pleasure. I'm a lucky man to work with such great people and live in such a wonderful
Well,
place.
thank you.
Thank
My
you.
guest today has been Chuck Boller, the Director Emeritus of the Hawaii International Film Festival. What a wonderful, I guess, a bastion of freedom and diversity for our state, something we need, something that helps preserve liberty. I encourage you to take a look at their offerings. This is Keli'i Akina with the Grassroots Institute. Until next week on Ehana Kako, we want to say thanks to Jay Fidel, producer of ThinkTech Hawaii, and aloha.